Cool. Adrian, hi. Okay, so everyone can see this, right? So yeah, the premise of this talk came from basically like seeing athletes, whether it's my own athletes or other people, just struggling with their Garmins at track. And, you know, I would ask them, they'd finish a 400 on 800 and they say, oh, what was the pace on that one? And they wouldn't have a clue which button to press. And I would look down and, you know, their watch would have like 6 lines of data from calories burned to stride rate to time of day, when you last ate and when you're due home and your wife is looking for you, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, you know, it dawned on me that there's you can learn to use the Garmin in a much better way, right? Because I always thought it was pretty obvious, like when I train, to keep the data screens very clear and simple. Then I realized that it wasn't. So I thought, okay, yeah, let's do a talk on this, right? So we're gonna cover how to set up the watch, real quick, how to capture the data in a usable way, all right? And then so the talk is gonna be split into 2 halves. The first bit will be theory about how to use the watch, and I'll run through that quite quickly. And I want you to go back and actually play with the watch for a bit and figure out how to use it, all right? The second half is kind of like a practical session where I'm gonna run through various sessions, different types of sessions, and then you will understand how to recognize what we are trying to extricate, what data we want, what we want to learn from that session. So that's where the mindfulness comes in. The mindful training comes in, right? So how to analyze data after a session as well, what to look for when you go into the Garmin Connect, what to look for in the graphs and all that, okay? And it's a little peek into what goes through my mind as a coach, what I look at when I look at your data, okay? And if anything, it will just impress upon you how important it is that I get good data, right? Instead of reams and reams of, you know, I had a guy who would start a new file for every interval he did. And so that was a bit troublesome. And hopefully, yeah, that won't happen after this talk. All right. So, okay. First things first, for those of you that aren't with me, I'm gonna go really quick, like spend 5 minutes talking about polarized training, because that's why the collection of data is so important. It allows me, all right, okay, this is the scope of the talk. Theory, practical, Ruben, hang on, admit. Okay, so I'm going to spend 5 minutes about what polarized training is, in case some of you don't know, and why it's important and how to set up accurate heart rate zones. Okay, then we're going to go into the Garmin setting up the Garmin. So how I like to use it, and this whole talk is just sharing how I use my Garmin. You might have a different way, but I'm hoping that you get 1 or 2 tips, you know, on how to clear it up, and really just nail down, hone in on what are the important metrics for different types of sessions. Okay, programming data screens, decide what's important, how to capture good data. This is the second half where we'll run through different types of sessions: low intensity, high intensity, tempo, and what we're looking for in each one. All right. Page down. What's that? 20 minutes late. Okay. So start with a bit of what mindfulness means when it comes when we're talking about triathlon or endurance training or running, right? To me, being a mindful athlete just means that you realize that every session has a certain purpose. We're trying to achieve certain goals, fitness-wise, in each session, and then often different from the session that you did before and the one you did even before that, right? So it's how you build the whole fitness picture brick by brick, right? As a lot of you would know, we need to hit different systems: the endurance, the speed, the high intensity, low intensity tempo, and all that. So when you're mindful, you know when you're headed out for a run, okay, this is an easy long run. What purpose does that fulfill, and what kind of data and how do I track it so that I don't get carried away, okay?
To use the phone
And in the same way for high intensity,
or you
like what do I track to make sure that I'm doing my high intensity efforts hard enough, right?
Sorry, Shem. Guys are talking. Could you go on mute, please? Because I can't hear. Thanks. Thanks, fellas.
I'm glad to hear you're paying attention, Brian.
Thank you.
You got all ears. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, so if you could, midway, we're going to have a question and answer, and at the end as well. So if you could mute for now, that'd be great. Okay, so back to this. Each session should have clearly defined goals and targets. As a coach, it's my responsibility to present them to you. So in your training plans, in your session plans, it will say, this is your goal, all right? Or the way I write it, it's very clear what I want, okay? But then it's your responsibility to know them and learn how to execute them and how to capture the data so that I can go back and check, right? So the role of data is to check that you've met those goals or you're progressing towards meeting those goals. So you know that I like to repeat sessions week to week, and like with the I mean, I hate to say with the good guys, but with the dedicated guys, they'll ask questions and we'll work through it week to week, session by session, and how can you do next week better? How can you do next week better? Da, 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 and then the data is there to back it up, right? So it also develops an understanding of how and why you're training a certain way, okay? To triangulate with performance and perceived effort to quantify form versus fatigue. Okay, so this basically, all right, what I'm trying to say here is that you use the data to overlay your performance and your perceived effort. Okay, I just put this in as a last point. Meaning, let's say I ran a mile in 6 minutes, 30 seconds, right? And it felt maybe 7 out of 10 effort. So that's quite a good mile for me, but it didn't feel that hard, right? And then I look at the data and I can tell, okay, I'm coming into form. I'm feeling good. Whereas, for example, like on Tuesday, I was a bit sleep deprived and I went out and straight away, like my heart rate was higher than the previous week for the same set. I felt terrible, and then I knew that, I was fatigued. And you can, nowadays there's more advanced ways like heart rate variability and stuff, but we're not going to cover that in the talk, okay? There are fatigue monitors. There are actually new kind of these bands, but I personally haven't gotten one of those Aura bands yet, and I don't know what that data is about. So yeah, when I'll do that talk, like when I get into it, all right, if I ever do. But that's mindfulness as an athlete, okay? Okay, real quick, 5 minutes on polarized training. Basically, polarized training has us training 80% of our sessions are done easy, and 20% of them are done hard. All right, and we try to we try not to train in this moderate zone here. So 80%. Look at this graph here. Okay, 80% easy. LIT is low intensity training, and that's what we'll call it from now on. And then high intensity training, 20%, or if you want to throw in some medium stuff, then that's threshold, THT threshold training. So 80% is made up of high intensity and threshold training. And it depends what part of your season is, when your key race is and how your build is. That's when you will play with the proportion here between the threshold training and the high intensity training. Okay. Okay, so basically, I have a whole talk on this. You can, I'll send the link to you. We did like an hour and a half on that, but I just need those of you that don't know about Polarized to know for the purpose of this talk. Okay. So getting the zones right. Okay, so there's run specific heart rate zones. I like when I test the athletes at the start or when we start working together, and also, you know, in the middle of the year or at the end of the season or the start of the season. We use specific, like there's a set of heart rate zones for running and a set of heart rate zones for cycling, okay, because these are not the same, all right? Now, if you look at this graph, it shows the typical 5-zone heart rate model, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's what is in your Garmin's and Polar and all. It's pretty universal, like 5 heart rate zones. Don't get mixed up with power zones. That's 7 zones. We're talking about heart rate zones here. There's 5. So to keep it really simple, like your heart rate zone 1 and 2, that's what we consider easy. And then 4 and above is what we consider hard. So that moderate zone that we kind of want to not train in most of the time, we want to avoid is zone 3. Okay. Now, when you look at actually, like I look at heart rate zone in my Garmin, I hardly use the heart rate, the actual heart rate. I use heart rate zone simply because it's much easier for me to understand. And you'll know that the Garmin displays the heart rate zones to 1 decimal point. So I can enter zone 2 and then I'll run, you know, I'll keep going for a bit longer. I'll increase the pace and I'll go 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, all the way up to 2.8, 2.9. All right. So you can control it quite tightly, and then, you know, for me, if I'm doing an easy session under LT, okay, under like an easy session, right? I'll go up to 2.9, and that's a signal for me to start backing up. Because if I keep going, it'll go 2.9, 3.0, 3.1. And it's not an on-off switch where, oh, I'm in 3, so I'm wasting my time, nothing's happening. Obviously not. Like the body is, you know, fluid. It's a bit more of an OCD thing for me to have like nice, clean looking data and to have like lots of time in zone 2, you know, but also it's to kind of play safe. So when I'm hit 2.7, 2.8, I know I can slow down and I can keep it within that range. Okay. So easy efforts, whether run or bike, is technically is in zone 1.0 to 2.9. All right. So once you start warming up, you started your easy session. If you want to be a little bit pedantic about it, you want to get the most out of your low intensity training, then try to stay between 2.4 and 2.9. So it's like the upper half of zone 2, okay? Because you're working at a nice rate. It's very aerobic, but then you're also forcing the adaptations compared to if you're working at, you know, zone 1.3 or whatever. So keep it to the upper range of easy, okay? Okay, so then next we get to the 20% where we are working hard, and I like to go above 4. Above heart rate zone 4, it's gonna feel hard, all right? So 4, if it's an extended effort between like any more than 8, 10, 12 minutes, then it's gonna start climbing. 4.5, 4.6, 4.7. Now there's no need to go harder into zone 5, and I explained that in my other talk, simply because those efforts really take a lot out of you in terms of recovery and immunity, and that if you spend too long there, too much time, accumulated time there in the week, then you're gonna know it. Like you're gonna be on the verge of falling sick or just feel a bit run down, right? So it's nice and elegant that way, that it's hard enough, but not so hard that you're smashing yourself. Okay. All right. So moderate is zone 3, right? 3.0 to 3.9. We spend minimal time here. Okay. So these blue highlights are when I'm going to ask questions to you guys, right? So which one of you can tell me when we use zone 3 training? Anyone? Anyone can speak up.
On tempo run.
Okay, was that Brian? Thank you. And when do we put tempo runs into our training?
Closer to the race.
Who said that?
Sorry, go ahead.
Greg.
Greg. Okay, good.
Race specificity.
Yes, race specificity. Good. So we are learning. That's good. So tempo runs and tempo efforts are for race specificity. So most of the time we're training easy, like lots of easy, little bit of hard, right? And then as we get closer to the race, we want to condition our bodies to get used to. You actually, if you're super in tune with it, you don't really need to do it, but it's a good practice. It's just getting used to how hard you're going to push on the race, whether it's watts on the bike or pace on the run. All right, so that's absolutely right, and I'm glad we got some answers for that. All right. Okay, so for the sake of completion, all right, the easy heart rate, all right, is known as the lactate threshold 1, all right, LT1, and lactate threshold 2 is LT2, okay, and that's 94% of a 20-minute effort, all right, of your best heart rate of a 20-minute effort, and LT1 is 75% of your heart rate max, okay, and they're going to need to be tested using field tests, which are covered in the other talk, right, and like to elicit your heart rate max or your LTHR. I'm going to skip through this part, all right. Take home message: 220 minus your age is not good enough. Don't just let Garmin decide what is your max heart rate, okay? So with polarized training, we're really compressing the 5-zone system into 3 zones: easy, moderate, hard. So once you get your head around that graph, which is actually quite simple, then your training becomes much easier, right? And it should be as easy as this. So you have your run, right? Your LT1 heart rate. This is my data, 139, and all of you will have one of these like in a spreadsheet and all your data is in it. And my LT2 heart rate is 158, okay? And then I extrapolate that to pace as well, okay? So easy runs are capped at 139 heart rate. Same for the bike, except that bike heart rates more often than not, like most of the time, are lower. So my LT1, so when I'm doing an easy ride, you see like I'm keeping it 125, 126, and I'm really, cruising easy, all right? And then LT2 is when I'm pushing hard on the trainer, on Zwift or whatever, then I go, above 146. Little bit more on that later, how I like to use pace and power to define high intensity levels as opposed to heart rate. Okay, it just gives you something to work towards. Whereas heart rate is really good. I find it's really good for capping the effort level on your runs, all right, and your bikes, right, for easy and even tempo efforts. Okay, all right. So the Garmin setup. Learn the basics. Garmin's usually have a start, stop, and pause button. And for me, that's top right. And then the lap button is the one with that arrow, like it's like a recycling arrow button. Okay, that's lap. All right, it's not difficult. Have a look. Okay, setting up the Garmin. The things that I want like everyone to do is to turn off auto lap. That's pretty basic. And how do you do that? All right, you go into menu, settings, activity settings, laps, and auto lap off. All right. There are times when you will use auto lap. Okay. And I use auto lap when I'm racing. So I'll calibrate that to the race. For example, if I'm racing a half Ironman and I have if I have a 90K bike ride to ride, right? And it's not like in 3 nice loops, but I still want to divide that 90-kilometer ride, or if it's a half marathon, like 7K, 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 right? And it's not a looped course, I would still like to divide that course into thirds, which is how I pace myself, right? So I would set the auto lap for the 90K bike to auto lap every either 30 kilometers or 15 kilometers. So I'll get 6 laps if it's 15 or 3 laps if it's 30. Then I know, like, then I can track my normalized power throughout that ride, because for that ride, I'll be trying to ride to a certain power. Same for a run for the runners, right? For a half marathon, I would auto lap every 7K or 3.5K, depending on your preference of how often you want to be told your lap. I think that the auto lap is set to, I think, 1 kilometer, and that's way too much, way too distracting when you're running. To every kilometer you get a beep or whatever, and you have to check your watch, right? So learn, like, it's pretty useful, not in day-to-day training, but it's useful in racing situations when you don't want to be worried, like, where am I along in the race, and when do I have to press the lap button? It will do it for you, and then okay, my first 30Ks was at whatever 190 watts or whatever. My first 7K was at like 4-minute pace, and how do I feel, right? So that's when auto lap is useful, but most of the time, keep it turned off, right? And the other thing to turn off is the auto accept heart rate max, accept new FTP, and accept new threshold heart rate, okay? Simply because the data is like, you just get off days. Like this morning, I went for a ride and I came back with like maximum watts of 20,000 watts, which is ridiculous. So there was a glitch, something, blew up, and my data wasn't great this morning. And of course, if I accepted that new FTP that it turned out, then, I would think that I'm stronger than I am. Or sometimes, if the connection is not good, if the battery's weak, then your heart rate, like, you get crazy high heart rates. And then if you leave on the auto accept, then that heart rate gets accepted, and then it just changes all your heart rate zones as well. So it's not as bad if it was a ridiculous anomaly, like way out there. Then you take one look and you go, oh, that's off. But if it was like a couple of beats higher, like 20, 30 beats, you'd think, oh, what's going on here? And then it would take you a little while to cotton on that, like something was up. Okay, so first things first, turn off all the auto accept and auto laps, right, for training purposes, all right? Creating individual heart rate zones. If you learn anything today, learn this. Okay, so say we've done the heart rate max test, okay? You need, the way that I calculate and define the heart rate zones are different from how the Garmin presets are, right? So I guess this is only important if you're one of my athletes. Then I would do this for you, but then this is how you would do it if you wanted to do it yourself, which would be awesome, right? We use these, so based on your heart rate max, these are the values that I use, okay? So zone 1 is upper end 65%, and so on and so forth. So 75%, you can see here 75% of your heart rate max signals the end of zone 2, right? 2.9, which is where you stop your easy runs at, okay? So to get into this, you go menu, my stats, user profile, heart rate, sport heart rates, zones based on, all right? Oh, zones based on heart rate, because you can base your heart rate zones on heart rate max or lactate threshold heart rate. All right, for the purposes of this talk, we're just going to talk about heart rate max because that's covered in my other talk, okay? And then you define the 5 individual zones as below. All right, so any of you having trouble with that, you can hit me up, or I can just send the presentation slides over, right? All right, so I'm going to training. I'm headed down for my run. I read my session and I'm thinking, step one, read and understand your session. What does this session want me to do? Okay, think about it. What type of run is it? Is it a tempo run? Is it a speed session? Is it a long, easy run? All right. Is it a high intensity or low intensity? So just take it takes like 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Read through it, visualize yourself going through it. How is it going to feel? What's it supposed to feel like? Get a vague idea of what that run is trying to elicit, and then like read the notes I put in your training sessions as well, because often it will be spelled out very clearly there. Heart rate capped at LT1 or pushed at 415 pace or whatever it might be. So read and understand the session, okay? And then you think about it. Identify only what data is needed to execute that session. All right, and this will be covered in the second part of the talk. All right, but think about what does Shem want me to get from this? What data do I need? And decide what you want to see. Right, and say, oh, so for example, if it's a 90-minute easy run, right, and it says capped at LT1, then the only thing that I want to see when I'm running is my heart rate zone, right, and how long I've been out there. All right, so then I would calibrate that screen to show just two things: one, heart rate zone, all right, and two, time out there. All right, pace is not important, distance is not important. So that's where you got to check your ego at the door a little bit, all right, and trust the process, okay? Because a lot of us be like, oh, when I started running like Polarized Easy, I was crawling along at 630 pace, and I was like, this can't be right. But then, and a lot of you would have gone through this, like would have experienced it 6 to 8 weeks in, you would see that your pace at the same heart rate just starts dropping and dropping, and you start feeling more efficient. So that's what we're after. So you really need to trust the process on that one, okay? So then you would calibrate your screen accordingly. And this is how you do it, all right? Activity, menu, activity settings, data screens. All right, so the data screen, okay, I'm gonna get out of this view for a second and explain something. Stop share. Okay, pin, all right. Let's see whiteboard. Now, you guys would have seen this at track, okay? All right, so let's talk about an easy run, right? This is a simple example. Easy run, 90 minutes, all right? Lower than LT1 heart rate, okay? So how would you calibrate your watch for this, all right? So this is your watch face. And I don't know about you, but I have trouble seeing anything more than two lines of data, all right? So the first one would be heart rate zone, and the second one would be timer, okay? And that's all I would need, because heart rate zone is for your LT1 to keep an eye on your heart rate, that it doesn't go above, zone 2.9, okay? And then this is just to know that you've been running for 90 minutes. That's it, okay? So you only need one screen, right? And that was it, okay? Okay, let's get back to the presentation. You can have mountable data screens. So you could this, okay, you can see this could be one screen, all right? You could have and then you could, let's say this is data screen 1, okay? You go to data screen 2, and you could just say have time of day because you need to get back before 9 a.m. All right, so you can have time of day, and you could have something else. You could have pace, all right, of run. But all this stuff is not important. It's not. It's only good to know. It's not need to know, right? And you can have another screen, right? Whatever it might be, right? What I'm trying to say here is that you only need like one or maximum like two screens, okay? So you can actually build different data screens and turn them on and off when you need. So I have a data screen that is for racing, right? So that's my data screen 4, okay? And so when I'm in, so I don't have to go in and recalibrate the screens again. I know that when I go to data screen 4 and turn it on, that's got my race info on it, all right? So you can use all of them, but select which ones you want before each session. It takes a bit of time to get used to fiddling around, like maybe 5-10 minutes when you start. Practice it, and literally like it'll take you like 2 minutes after you put on your shoes, right? Just pull up the right screens, check you got the data you want, and then off you go, all right? So for all you guys that are scrambling out there and you come and you don't know what you're looking at, learn this, all right? If you learn one thing, if you learn one other thing today, this is it, all right? And if you struggle with that, and if you are able to understand this, then I'm happy, all right? My job is done today, all right? So learn how to set up your data screens for your different workouts, okay? And learn how to turn them on and off. Just pull them up as you please, all right? Okay. Here, okay. So I like to keep it simple, no more than 2 lines of data, because my eyesight is failing, and no more than 2 data screens. And that gives you like 4 metrics, which is already a lot to think about when you're out there pushing your body to, as hard as you can in training, or trying to control it, right, in your training. More often than not, like I have 1 screen with 2 lines of data, okay, and that's all I need, all right? If you do 2 data screens, screen 1 can be the one you refer to all the time. So meaning like every 5 minutes or whatever, check your heart rate zone. And then the second screen could be stuff you only need to know like once or twice in that whole session, whether it's a 3-hour bike or a 90-minute run, okay? It could be time of day. It could be, like you're cruising along. I'm wondering what's my average pace. It's not the stuff that you absolutely need to know about. It's just the, kind of peripheral, like, I'm wondering, like how I'm running today, okay? And that's also useful if, like, on your training plan, you have like 3 weeks of this, like, for example, 90-minute easy run, right? You can, like, each week, the conditions out there are going to be different if you run at the same time or different time of the day, hot day, cool day. And then you can compare, like, my easy pace on a cool day in the evening is, for example, like 5:30, right? But last week I did it in the blazing sun because I couldn't get out in the morning, and I really suffered, and I was running at 6:30 pace. So then you can quantify, for a fact that, like you suffer more in the heat, right? So that can be kept on data screen too, right? Not crucial. I need to know what my heart rate is right now information, right? Okay. So this is, I think, yeah. So this is halftime. Just know that, looking at data, I've grouped it into like 2 halves. So one is in-session data, what you're looking at in real time as you're running, what I want to know as you're running, what I want to know, okay? And then you come back, you have a shower, get some food out, you got like, 5 minutes before the kids attack you, then you look at your data, and then post-session analysis. So what you look at and how do you make use of the data that you have captured, all right? Oh. admit. Okay. So this is half time. This is the theory side of things done. Is there any questions at all? Ask away. Anyone?
Yeah. So what the one that I always, try to connect after I look at the data, after I go to Garmin Connect after a run, is connecting my cadence and my heart rate. And one of the things you and I had talked about is, so I just checked everything that you've just talked to, and I've got 3 screens set up, just, and 2 of them I look at a lot. One of them I don't look at it, frankly, that much, right?
So wait, quickly.
Yeah.
You can turn it off. So you can turn off that whole screen.
Yeah.
And then you don't even have to think about it ever again.
I understand. But that's that screen I use once in a while, right? So I just kind of marked the one I look at a lot is heart rate, heart zone, which you've mentioned, just because that's what we're using, right? So I guess the question that I have is that when I come back and I look at Garmin Connect, is I'm really trying to watch my cadence, right? Because so I'm hitting heart rate. If I see my cadence drop, be below a certain number, or even above a certain number, if the run's meant to be easy, I don't feel like I'm achieving the goal. So I guess how do I, when I'm running and I'm in that heart rate space and it's okay, and the watch is giving me the data I want, and I'm meant to be running it at 7, okay, and it's telling me that my heart rate's at 125, right, and I'm cool, right? How do I know why is it that when I get back and I look at the cadence, that the cadence doesn't match what I've done, and it looks like I've gone slower? Did you understand? The cadence numbers are off, right? So I've noticed that when my cadence numbers are at 190 minimum, right, and maximum 200 to 205, it's a good run, right? And it doesn't necessarily correlate with the heart rate sometimes. So I guess what's the relationship? The question, sorry for the long one, what is the relationship between cadence, pace, and heart rate? And how do we need to think about that?
Well, if you're coming back with a cadence of 200, I would maybe do a manual count and check.
Right.
That your foot pod or you're not even foot pod these days, but that it's not off, right?
Right.
Because that sounds like a very high cadence. But I know that you do have a naturally quite a high cadence, all right? So I would just check, and to do a manual count is basically like 30 seconds. You count how many times your right elbow drives back, and you multiply that by 2, okay?
Okay. Got it.
So that's
got it. Okay. All right, let me try that on tomorrow's run.
And
I don't want to take up a lot of people's time.
To answer your question a bit further, like normally if you're not used to running with a high cadence, but you are transitioning, like if you have like really long legs and you're really tall, and I say, like for example, Ian, you need to work on your cadence, right? The transitional time, the transition between like low and high cadence, say 150 to 170 steps per minute. When you're learning to run with a higher cadence, yes, your perceived effort will be higher, because a lot of things are, you're adjusting a lot. You're learning how to breathe at a different rhythm, okay? Mainly, your legs are turning over quicker, the neuromuscular firing is all different and it's all new. That's why for the first couple of weeks of trying to develop your stride rate, for the same pace, your effort's going to be higher, right? Brian, you got that?
Yeah.
But once you've locked it in, once it becomes your default, as you see your default non-thinking stride rate go up 160, 165, 170, you should see that your heart rate and perceived effort should start to settle down again. Okay? You got it? Okay.
Yep.
Right. Any other questions?
I leave a message in the chat, but Do you use like a sound alert to tell you if you go past the LT1 or not?
Yes. Yeah, I see the chat. Yeah, my wife will tell you I cannot multitask. But I'm looking at it now, and that's a good one. Yes, that is useful. I don't use it myself. I find it's just much easier to look down at my watch, simply because for different sessions, I am running at different heart rate zones, which would just mean that it gives me one extra thing to adjust before I head out for that run. So if it's a high intensity run, then I would say use the sound or the vibration alert when I go above zone 4 to know that I am in the right zone, right? If it's an easy run or ride, I would say use the vibration or sound alert when I go above zone 2.9, right? So it's useful, but I don't use it because I can just look down and I can see numerically, oh, I'm in the right zone, or I need to go a bit harder, right? I've had sometimes that thing will just like beep and I don't know what's going on. Like I'll look down and it's like, because I'm in the thick of it, I'm in the thick of training. I just don't want to be distracted by a sound or vibration because I know I can just get it from my wrist by looking down at it. Okay, does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah, but if you know if it works for you, then that's fine. If it helps you stay in the zone, and if you're running, and if you know that it goes off, that means you are going too fast, and then you know you can slow down. And if that saves you from looking at the watch and trying to figure stuff out, then by all means use it. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? We can go like question time again at the end, but if not, I'm going to continue. All right. Okay. So in this part of the talk, we are going to go through different types of runs and bikes. And each session is going to be split into 2 slides. One is in-session monitoring, what we're looking at when we are training. And then for the second slide, it'll be post-session. What are you looking for, or what I look for when I look at your data? Okay, and this is when some of you guys should be thinking, oh, okay, so that's why I need to lap my watch, or that's why I need to, you know, whatever, like get my chest strap in and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so this is the example that we've been using all morning, all afternoon. So this will be quite. I'll run through this quite quickly. 90-minute easy run. And this is what it will look like in your session plan, right? The whole point of this is just spend time logging low intensity minutes. So if you remember polarized training, 80%, right? 80% low intensity, right? And then 20% high intensity. The point of this run is to build up that 80%. That's all it is. To you know that, and to spend time on your feet, and like that aerobic stimulus, right? And that's what we want to do. The more, so if you think about it, the more 80% you do, the more easy sub LT1, sub zone 2.9 running you do, then I think about it as like you earn the right to do the high intensity stuff. You paid the dues, and then you are allowed to do a certain amount of high intensity, which was what brings on the speed. If you don't do that and you do too much of the high intensity stuff, that's when injury comes, that's when burnout comes, when you're tired, fatigued, fall sick, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so remember that. Okay, and then I might say the whole run fasted. That's about nutrition and stuff like that. Why would you do that? Okay. For a lot of you would know, just for like efficiency and all that. So going into the run, we've spoken about this: screen 1, zone only, timer only, clear, simple, uncluttered, and focused. So when you're out there, that's how you're looking at heart rate zone. Okay. Alex, this is what you were talking about. So you have the option to set the zone alert, beep or vibrate. Okay. And then I spoke about this. You have an option of looking at average pace. So this is a good to know. It's not a need to know. It's a good to know. for reference compared to last week, right? 2 weeks ago when I did the same run on the same route, the same time, blah, blah, blah. It's actually useful because if you are working on building that aerobic base, it's nice. It's a nice encouragement to see that your average pace for an easy run dropping, and then you have like a one magic day where it's just rained and it's cool and you're clipping along at like 5:30 pace or 5-minute pace or whatever it might be, and you think, oh, this is amazing, because this is, previously my heart rate would have been much higher. So that's when you know that your metabolic control is there. Okay, and we'll speak about that a bit later. So what are you looking for that you're not going too hard on this run? Pretty simple, all right? Pace is not important, distance is not important. So you come back from your run, post-session, all right? And this is just an example from my own data, all right? This is what a nice zone 2 run looks like, okay? 94% of the time is spent below LT1, so that is 81 plus the 13% here, so it's probably warming up. And like, honestly, like, I'm not even worried about that zone 3 bit there, because that's when I've gone like 2.9, 3.0, 3.1. Oh, better back it off, and then I'll go back down. So that's what a good zone easy run looks like, okay? So then I look at my other data, right? So there's also this graph, which is like heart rate, which is, well, same thing. This is heart rate distribution, how much time you spend in each zone. This is your heart rate across that 90-minute run. And as you can see, as expected, it's quite stable, right? But the pace is erratic, and the pace is like up and down, up and down, up and down. And this is for the purpose of this talk, is to show you that because the pace is up and down, and it's not important because it was a hilly run, all right? So this was like a 1.5 or a 1.5 times McRitchie, so it's up and down, it's got some climbs, and it's on trail, so the terrain varies. So if this was my athlete, I would look at this and go, oh, hang on, this guy, like, he's got good metabolic control. Like, he's going up and down hills, but he's able to keep his heart rate stable, which tells me that he's taking it very easy on the climbs, all right? And so he's aerobically, he's well developed. He can control, he's able to go up to zone 2.8 and back it back down to 2.5 and cruise along. And like personality-wise as well, he's compliant, or he or she is compliant, right? And they can keep their ego in check. Now that's an important thing with pretty much everything, okay? Especially with like training, that you trust the process and that you're able to, because like easy running feels great, and before you know it, you're like zone 3.5, and in your head, I've told myself, this feels great, I feel great, it feels easy, right? But in like scientific terms, physiologically, polarized speaking, it's not, all right? So this it tells me that this guy or girl is good at keeping the ego in check, and they will do what I tell them, which is excellent, all right? Okay, so we've done that session. This is a tempo session, so I've ordered the sessions in like terms of increasing intensity, okay? So you guys pointed out correctly, tempo sessions are used preparing for a race, in the race specific phase, and they're just used to get your body kind of used to pushing a harder effort for a longer time. Okay, so for example, your session plan would say something like warm up 15 minutes easy. Okay, now question to anyone out there, why is this important to check that your heart rate, like in your warm up, you keep it under LT1 at an easy heart rate? Anyone got a quick answer to this? Anyone?
For me, it's just injury. It's injury prevention.
Okay.
In fact, I probably over warm up, right? So for me, for me, I get some time on the roller before I head out of the house.
Yep.
I then do dynamic stretching. And then I've learned that most injuries for me have occurred in the first 20 minutes of a run.
Okay, so I mean, I'll give you like half a mark for that if I was like marking your test paper. So the reason why I like to keep the warm-ups at this level is because I'm actually using warm-ups and cooldowns to pad out your LT1 time, right? So all the like this is going like if you train, like 6 times a week, right? And each time you're warming up 20 minutes easy, right? Then you're getting like 6 times 20 minutes extra of LT1 time or of low intensity training, right? It's as simple as that. I need to find, because it's not glamorous, the low intensity stuff. So I do need to find ways of sneaking it in, like tricking you guys to do easy stuff, right? And I'll tell you what they are later on, okay? So run 2 is a tempo run, 40-minute tempo, all right? Sorry, ignore this 2 to 3 minutes rest. It's not, this is a 40-minute block like tempo run, okay? Efforts between heart rate zone 3.5 to 3.8, aim for stride rate, all right, 170 steps per minute. So maybe this is for someone who is trying to develop their stride rate, okay? Then you can finish with 6 times 200 hard, 200 easy, blah, blah, blah. So you see, as I'm reading through this, this is what I was talking about, that step 1, where you're pondering what this session is about, right? What is this session trying to get me to do, right? So obviously the main bulk of this is the 40-minute tempo. That's the important part, okay? Secondary to that is the stride rate. So I don't know if I mentioned it before, but like tempo is that middle zone, that zone 3, okay? That stuff that we're trying to avoid. That's what I call tempo zone 3.0 to 3.9. But if you want to get the most of it, then do it in the upper half of zone 3, all right? So that's the main part. So I'm thinking, okay, so coach wants me to run 40 minutes, keeping it controlled within 3.5 to 3.8. So very much the same as the easy run. I would have on my data screen heart rate zone, right? But then coaches also said, oh, I'm working on my stride rate, so I want to keep an eye on that. I want to kind of have a look and just feel what stride rate I'm running at. So then I would put stride rate as the second data, the line of data on the same screen, right? And that's my 2 data points, and that's all I want, okay? Screen 2 could be, well, it would be timer and pace, all right? Maybe I wouldn't put distance. I'll put distance here, but I would put timer instead to know when my 40 minutes was up, okay? So again, 3, maximum 4 lines, 4 metrics of data, and that's pretty much, like for me anyway, that's as much as I can deal with, right? When I'm training, okay? So clear, simple, and uncluttered, all right? So I've asked you this question, why is it important? And now you all know, and hopefully you won't warm up for like, 5 minutes, because the 15, 20-minute warm up is we're building time in zone 1, in below LT1, okay? What else are we looking for? That the tempo efforts are not too hard, right? It's done within the given range, okay? So why does the data need to be lapped? So after I finish the 40-minute tempo section, I would lap it, okay? And this is about capturing nice, tidy looking data for me to look at, all right? I would lap it, and then I would I'll take a couple of minutes to walk around and just breathe it out. And before I did this, finish 6 times 200 hard, 200 easy, okay? So that's this slide. This is the post-session analysis. This is what that session looks like exactly, okay? So this portion here is the 40-minute tempo run, all right? And I would see this on your graph, and I would know that, okay, so this athlete is actually, again, like compliant and good, because you see those little bumps here, okay? That's me looking at my watch going, oh, zone 3.7, 3.8, I better back it off, and then I let it drop again. So I wish I could zoom in on this. Oh, I can. Cool. Okay. So see these little, like he just goes. So this was done on a like completely flat. All right. So that doesn't come into the heart rate. And so that's what controlling your heart rate looks like. Like you'd go up to zone 3.8, right? Then I would back it off and then would drop it back down to zone 3.5, whatever, and go up again and back down and up again. So all these little variations shows me that you are working at controlling your pace. So then my feedback to you would be like a thumbs up emoji or one of these or a big smiley or a well done. All right. So I know when you are working at the important stuff, what I'm trying to tell you to work at. Okay. So this athlete was managing his heart rate and effort well. Tempo capped at zone 3 ceiling, like 157, blah, blah, blah. Stride rate, accept. Okay, so then I'll go into like your Garmin Connect and then we'll pull up this big table of stuff here. And then I would find okay, so this yellow line here, 37 minutes, 53 seconds. This, I would know that would be the tempo section. So this is why it's important to lap your data at the start of that and at the end of that, because it's a marker for me when I go in and have a look. Why, when I scroll down through all this, I'm looking for where is his tempo section, right? And this data would be completely like unusable if you had left the auto lap on, right? Because then it would show me, you know, if you ran 6Ks, 7Ks in 40 minutes, it would show me like every kilometer it would be auto lapped, and I wouldn't know where your tempo section started or ended. Okay, so I can see some of you nodding now, going, oh yes, that's why I need to lap my data. Okay, so lap your data at the right times, right? So each chunk, start your tempo, lap it, run, finish your tempo, lap it again. So I can identify your data here, right? So I'm looking across, this is what's happening in you and how you're performing for this 40 minutes. And so then I would pull up your heart rate, your average heart rate, 150. Then I would go to your table and I would see that, oh, okay, Greg, let's say your tempo, you know, ceiling is 157. So well done, you kept it underneath there. And your cadence is 168, and you know, and I'm trying to get you to run at like 170, 175. So good effort. Let's keep working on your cadence. Okay, so this is like the peek into my brain, how I look at data, how you can look at your own data as well. All right. Okay, so when do we tempo runs? All right, we covered that. As an aside, why would you finish on 6 times 200 hard, 200 easy? Anyone want to hazard a guess, or should I just keep going? Because you know, I'm talking for an hour now. Anyone? Okay, I'll answer just to speed things along. Because you guys like to train for an hour. Because you think that if you head out for anything less than an hour, it's not counted. All right. So one reason is to give you a nice hour to work with. All right. But more than that, we are doing hard efforts after a tempo section, which is, you know, tempo running is not exactly easy. All right. So it's kind of like why don't we just add some, like sprinkle a bit of strength work, because these are actually sprints, right? So 200-meter sprints will take less than a minute, so it's not long enough for your heart rate to go into zone 4. So I'm not trying to log high intensity time here, right? This is a neuromuscular exercise. This is me trying to get you to run hard on tired legs. So tired from the 40-minute tempo, from the 20-minute warm-up, then, you know, and it's only little bits at a time with very long recovery. So, you know, like 45 seconds hard, it's like a neuromuscular programming, right? It's like how you would feel after, like towards the end of maybe a 5K or 10K run, right? You still want to be able to recruit and push hard. It just gives you a taste of that, right? So on the day of, say, like a 10K time trial, you would somewhere in your memory banks, you would pull that up and go, oh, I've kind of done this before, right? And it would be there in your training memory banks, all right? With the long rest, you know, like you're able to keep running them hard, but also giving your heart rate a chance to drop right down. Okay, so it's as simple as that. Just for a bit of neuromuscular kind of speed strength work at the end, right? Just as a nice finisher. Okay, all right.
Shem, do you mind going on the slide run one? I'd like to take a screenshot, please.
Which one?
Run one, the slide
run one. I can send you this deck, Alex. This slide?
Yes. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Okay. Done that. Okay. So this is the painful one. This is the one that it's hard to get me to do this. Run free, high intensity. So this is a set that we were using. You will fondly remember when we were doing the 10K program at track before we got shut down. Again, you see the 15, 20 minutes easy, all right? You all know what that is for now. And then the main set, not a huge volume, but proper hard. So 4 times 1.2 Ks, high intensity, all right? So this is that 20% we're talking about, right? With 4-minute rest, and 4-minute rest is a long rest, and it's to allow you to make sure that the next interval can be pushed hard enough again, right? So as I'm talking through this is that step one. This is that pondering that I'm talking about. This is that kind of understanding what coach wants from this session, okay? So this is what you see in your training plan. 4 times 1.2 K, high intensity, ouch, that's gonna sting, right? Heart rate higher than LT2, okay? So then I would know what my LT2 is like, or actually I wouldn't need to know, because as long as my Garmin is telling me heart rate zone 4.1 and above, I'm in the right zone, okay? Because you understand that graph, right? Interval pace, 350, let's just say 3 minutes 50 per K, right? Just below your goal 10K pace, whatever that may be. So that's what it says in my training plan. And as I read through it, I've started to understand, okay, this is going to be a tough session. You know, I think I probably need some calories for it. High intensity stuff always helps. Have a gel, have a sport drink, okay? Okay, so I'm getting out of the car, I'm playing on my phone, right? How do I set up my Garmin? What do I want to see on this session, all right? So I would definitely want to see heart rate zone again, because when I'm running, I want to know that I'm pushing above 4.1 heart rate zone, okay? And then, you know, if I want to be a little bit more detailed, I know that, let's say my goal 10K pace is 355, right? So then the instructions are to run it below my goal 10K pace, right? So then I would pull up lap pace. So lap pace is basically the pace of that lap, not your real time exactly now pace, but your lap pace. So if you lap it for 1.2 Ks, 3 rounds of a track, right? It's going to show you what pace you're running at. So I kind of want to know that, but I'm not going to let that control me. As in, if I'm not feeling good and I can't make 350 pace that day, I'm not just gonna tank it, right? I'm gonna say, all right, today is maybe like a 4-minute pace, 4-minute pace day. I'm still gonna finish that set. I'm just gonna know I'm a bit off, or I'm a bit off target, right? My aspirations for my 10K goal pace are probably a little bit rich, okay? So this is part of that mindful thought processes that I'm talking about, right? So on screen 1, I would have lap heart rate zone, right? Lap pace to check if I'm going hard enough during, right? And then if I didn't need a second data screen, then I would put lap time there as well. So the lap time is there, not to time how long it takes me to do 3 rounds, because that's not that important, all right? it's really to time the recovery, because that's important, okay? Because I want to get enough rest, so I'm not shooting off at like 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, right? And to keep it repeatable, so every week that we do this set, 3 times 1.2, 4 times 1.2, 5 times 1.2, it can be the same, right? So I would only need one screen for this session, right? Again, super important to lap your workout so that when I go in, okay, so I've just talked about this. What are you looking for? Check that warm up is easy enough. Hard efforts are hard enough. Interval. Okay, so this is exactly what I'm talking about, and the data needs to be lapped. Okay, and this is why. Okay, so this is the post session analysis of your data. Okay, so here you can see the pace. All right, and the heart rate would look similar. All right, so I can see that. Oh, nice. I'll be able to see, and the 4 intervals. So straight away, okay, he's completed all 4. That's good. All right. I would go in and look at these. So this is why, again, just to to hit the point home, you need to lap it, is because in this case I would look at the distance. All right, so 1.16, that's the first interval. All right, 1.18, that's the second interval. 1.18, that's the third interval, and here again, I think, okay, so this one was recorded short, but that would be the 4th one, because I know it would be like, that's it, that's a work bout here, followed by a rest, followed by a work bout, rest, work bout, rest, work bout. So sometimes like the signals off, right? But anyway, that's how I identify which are the intervals you do. So again, if auto lap is on, that's useless, all right? And if you don't lap your watch, again, it's like I'm guessing, okay? So then I would look at your or this athlete's average heart rate, all right? Is he going hard enough? So let's say this athlete's LT2, his zone 4 starts at 158 heart rate, right? His first interval was like 149. Sometimes that's the case because you've been low, like warming up, so you haven't revved the engine yet, right? Then it gets up to 151 on the second one, 157, 156. So in terms of like, if you accuracy and purity of data, like only the last 2 intervals of 4 were hard enough, right? So that's what it would indicate to me. What does this indicate? I would see that, right? But then I would cross-check it and look at the pace as well. So the goal pace was like 350 pace, right? So then I would look here, average pace 347, 344, 351, 354. So kind of, yeah, like more or less there, right? First 2, because you're fresher, obviously, your pace is quicker. So this athlete has pretty much hit like the pace, faded at the end a little bit, but like, this is like a solid session from me, all right? And I would let that guy know. I said, well done, super nice effort. Make sure you get recovery and all that kind of stuff, right? So this athlete did these intervals just nice, hard enough, but not destroying themselves. So not going into the zone 5, not kind of letting his ego get in the way and like, oh, I'm feeling awesome, I'm going to smash these and just see how close I can get to like 330 pace, right? Because that, like as we age up, that's when injuries happen. Like generally I'm finding as I age up, I really need to be controlled and aware of what I'm doing to my body. Like back in the day, we could train so hard every day and recover, bounce back, and just keep smashing. Now it's different. Injuries popping up, especially with like all different life, stressors and all that. So it's a little bit different now that we are more mature, right? Okay. So then I might say possibly next week lean into them a touch. If you can't, keep it the same, right? So that's how you would analyze this run. Okay. Okay. I realize it's 4:30. I don't want to take up too much your whole afternoon. This is a
Shem,
5K.
could I
Yep.
interject? I don't want to be rude. I'm going to need to go. Sorry.
Okay. I'll send you the recording, Brian.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Shem. Thanks. Very helpful.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye, guys. Keep racing. Keep running. Stay safe. Cheers.
Cool. Thanks. All right. So quickly, run 5K time trial at track. This is okay. So basically, I'm gonna skip this actually, okay? Because it's quite like same thing, right? Read through 5K TT, goal pace 3:45. So what would I have on my screen? Okay, actually this one maybe I'll keep going. I might skip some of the bike stuff. So let's say I'm running this at the track. I'm taking you through my thought process, right? 12.5 laps of the track. Now, when you're pushing your body to like at its limit, even counting number of laps is very confusing for me. All right, like am I lap 3, lap 4, am I lap 5, lap 6, right? So then I would do a special data screen setup, right? And I would have decided I'm going to lap the watch every lap I go around, every 400, just to give me a gauge of if I was there or thereabouts at the pace, right? So then on the data screen, I would draw up on screen 1, right, the lap number, because that's what's important to me, all right? The pace is important as well, but I need to get 5K, right? I can't run like 8 laps. I can't run 9. I need to run 12.5 laps, right? So then every time I hit that button, it's going to register 1 lap. So I know how far through that 5K I am, right? And the second line of data would be the distance, right? So if I can't calculate like 8 times 400 meters, what is that, right? I could see, right? 8 times 400 meters, I would be like, whatever it is, right? However many Ks into the 5K I'm in, right? Optionally, on the second data screen, I would have lap pace, average pace, or I might even use the auto lap on this occasion, all right? Now, I put the lap pace as an optional because you would be asking me, oh, isn't that pretty important? Isn't lap pace like really important? If you're going, for example, like a sub 20-minute 5K, then I would want to know lap pace, right? You go, yes, I agree. But then I would have glanced down every time I hit the Garmin, and once you press lap, like there's like for maybe 5 seconds it appears what that lap pace was, and then I would know, right? Okay, I'm running 350 pace. That's good. I'm running like 348 pace. Oh, that's a bit hot. I should pull it back the next lap. Okay, so I don't need to have that on my watch because every time I hit lap, it's going to show that to me, right? The most important thing to me is not running too much or too little, okay? All right, so that's that. Post-session analysis, okay, basically I'm looking at average pace. The first couple of laps, if you look at this vertical line down, average pace, this is like 12, these are the 12 laps of the 400s, all right, that this athlete did. So obviously like started out too hard, 334, 341, 345, 347. So it wasn't until like the 5th lap that I kind of stayed out, and you know, like this guy would have paid for it. It was me, but you know, I paid for it because you can see that I'm really suffering on the back end here, okay, because of this here, and just feeling a little bit too much adrenaline and, you know, too much coffee maybe, all right? And then, but then you can see as well how, you know, you rally. So you push up again, and then you're like managing the red line, you drop it and you push the pace up again. So it's that process, that this is what I call managing the red line. So it's not, you don't just pull the plug, right? You get to the level, and if you can preempt it a little bit, right? If I keep running at this intensity for too long, then I'm going to blow up. So then I back it off, right? Then I've just recovered, my breathing's just under control. Then I push up again. So that's what I call managing the red line for any kind of race or time trial effort, right? You're always going to be managing your red line, even for a half Ironman distance, even for an Ironman, right? Obviously, the red line is at a different place, but you always want to have an idea where that is, and and it's not always based on heart rate as well. Okay, it can be based on power, whatever. And then, but then I check the heart rate zones, and most of this run is spent in zone 4 and 5, so that's a proper hard run. So it shows that, you know, this is probably this athlete's best effort with the amount of time in zone 4 and 5. So well done, good 5K time trial. Okay. Yeah. I would also look at, you know, like a 5K time trial is always a good proxy for a lactate threshold test. So then I would look at right down here, what was my average heart rate for the 5K, right, for about 20 minutes. And then I would go and check back on my data, my tables, and see if anything's changed physiologically, if anything has changed. All right, then I would have also a quick look at your run cadence and just see where you were at on that as well. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna breeze through this part. These are the like similar, but the bike version of them. Okay, so bike one, 2.5 to 3 hours easy, endurance, low intensity. So pretty much the same as the run. I would set heart rate zone and timer. Okay, so the guys that before lockdown, before we were doing our 70.3 race simulation, we would go out and we would have great rides, keeping to zone 2.8 and just racing at zone 2.8, and that was kind of fun. Okay, so yeah, that's what low intensity training is like. All right. Post session analysis. This is an interesting one. I covered it in one of my previous talks, but just quickly, and it will probably interest you because this, again, it shows that the effect of aerobic development. All right. So 4th of April, all right, last year, my FTP was 223. I spent these are identical rides, okay? I spent 81% of the time under LT1. So it's a decent effort at an easy ride, all right? Then, so this is heart rate, all right? This is power, all right? So lots of blue, bit of green, very acceptable, right? If an athlete came back and showed me this ride, it's like, well done, nice, easy ride, okay? Time spent, okay, but then we look at power, the time spent in zone. So this is just power zones, different from heart rate, but it gives me an idea how quickly you're going or how much power you're putting out, right? So the time spent in zone 3 power and above was like 13%. So I added up this is 13%, okay? So this whole period, you know, I dedicated to training, building that aerobic based training easy, right? Plus that 20% hard. And first, you can tell, like my metabolic control was much better. I was able to ride exactly the same ride at a higher time under LT1, okay? And my power, like my FTP, my threshold power had gone up at that time, okay? And for the same ride, I was able to spend like 33% of that ride above zone 3 power compared to 13% in April. So this is just proof, and why you know, I'm a big believer in polarized training, and why I have got you guys training like this. Okay, VO2 intensity. Okay, so this is 5 times 4 minutes. This is similar to the 4 times 1.2K run, so I'm not going to go into this. All right, these are our Zwift sets. Same thing. All right, what would you pull up on your Garmin? All right, it's even easier when you're on a smart trainer because it's on the computer. You don't have to. But on screen 1 on my Garmin, I would just put heart rate zone to make sure that I am working hard enough, right? And power, all right, to make sure I'm working at least 105% of my FTP, right? This becomes important when you're riding out on the road, not on the trainer, not to a structured session that I've built, but out on the road. And they're really fun doing structured sessions on the road, all right? But this is what I'll pull up on the Garmin, all right? Power, heart rate zone, and timer to time when your 4 minutes was up, okay? So that's it's fun, okay? What are you looking for? High intensity efforts, interval should be, yeah, so we talked about that. And also that we're not getting carried away and going too hard into zone 5 too often, because you're digging yourself into a hole, okay? Again, this data needs to be lapped in order for me to see it clearly like this, you see? So time, 5-minute interval, this is my average heart rate, 5-minute interval, 5-minute interval, and I can see the power, average power, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's why it's important to lap your data. Okay. Okay, so this is the one I'll spend a little bit of time on. Okay, so 2 more sessions and we're done. All right. This one I like, and many of you would have done with me on our group sessions. The micro burst. Okay, so this is what it looks like. It's okay, 3 times 12 minutes effort, all right, 7 minutes recovery, so nice long recovery. And these 12 minutes are broken up into sorry, it's 3 times 9 minutes, okay, and they're broken up into 12 times of 30 seconds on and 15 seconds off. So you can see that's one block here, all right, and each one is 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off, right? So the whole idea of doing these micro bursts, and I'm explaining a little bit, these micro burst intervals is to trick your body into spending longer than it actually can at zone 4 and above. So if we go to this slide previously, right? This session, 5 times 4 minutes or 5 times 5 minutes, 5 times 6 minutes is as long as you can, unless you're like an amazing athlete, right? Like us laymen, like 6 minutes at 105 ATP, that is hard. To do it 5 times, you're gonna be pretty flawed by the end of that, right? But by doing micro bursts, right, you can spend up to like 9 minutes or 12 minutes by going like on, off, like that, at a super high power. So the first block is at 120% FTP, right? Of 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off, right? The second block is at 130, and the third block is at 140% FTP, okay? So you can see that they're increasing 120, 130, 140%, okay? And I'll show you the net result of that after we talk about how you set up your Garmin on that. So again, we want to look at heart rate zone to make sure you're above zone 4, all right? And for this, you'll definitely be above zone 4, okay? Power as a percentage of your FTP. And actually, you don't even need that, because if you do it on a smart trainer, it's up on the screen, okay? And it's in erg mode, so it kind of ensures that you are pushing that hard, all right? So like I said here, last 2 are unnecessary if you're on a smart trainer, okay? But what we're looking for is this 9-minute work about, sorry, this should be 9 minutes, okay? Hard enough, okay? Short, high power intervals, and even shorter rest. So 15 seconds in between each spike allows us to spend longer time periods at high intensity, because that little break just kind of tricks your body and gives you like just a few beats per minute drop in heart rate, but still above zone 4, right? To catch your breath and go again for another 30 seconds, okay? So for this set, it's important to lap at the start and the stop of the entire 12-minute section, not in between 30 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, all right? And why do I insist on that? Is because I'm looking at all these 12 microbursts as one effort, right? So I want to know what your average heart rate was for this whole block here, right? And so I've done it here, and you can see this first block, it's like 8:48. So that's the 9-minute effort, right? And the average heart rate was 136, all right? So I know that that's not quite high enough for my high intensity, right? Which is, I think, 145 or 144 heart rate, right? So when the power went up to like 130% of your FTP, then I was going hard enough. So 146 is above my LT2, is above my zone 4. So then I know, okay, I need to be doing these microbursts at 130% of my FTP for it to register as like proper high intensity. Okay, again, I'm going to say that it doesn't mean that this first block is useless and didn't do anything for me. Obviously it did, but if you want to get it correct, then we need to be going, for me anyway, above 145. Okay, and then this last block was just like pure suffering because it was up at 140% FTP, and you're probably pushing around like zone 4.9 here. Okay, so yeah, second and third blocks were definitely hard enough. Okay, and the nice thing about microburst is that I was able to stretch the time spent at one go from 5 minutes before to spend 9 minutes at high intensity. Okay, all right, so that's okay. So we're on to the last set. Kids are screaming. Okay, so this is a trick set. This is a new one that we've been working on, and it's power peak. So this is a profile. Okay, again, it's short intervals of high power. So 3 minutes at 105, 1.5 minutes at 115. All right, 1 minute at 120%. Blah blah blah. Half a minute at 125%. So you can see from this screenshot of the Zwift set that these are like proper way above FTP intervals, right? With 2 minutes recovery. So that's long recovery, okay? So again, like the setup, Garmin setup is the same heart rate zone, all right? What are we looking for here? That the high intensity, like the power, like I'm meeting the power, that I'm actually going at 105%, 110, 150, 120% FTP. Now, this is the interesting about this set, right? Is that actually, when I look at the post-session analyses, when I look at the time in the heart rate zones, right? Despite how it feels and despite how this heart rate might look like, oh, it looks pretty fierce and pretty scary, and it felt like hard in parts. Actually, when you look at the time in the heart rate zone, is actually a low intensity session, right? And that's what I would label it, or I wouldn't label it as that, but this is, in my mind, I would say, okay, this athlete is banking low intensity time here, right? Which is why this is kind of a useful session to do, right? So it's interesting that while the heart rate peaks are there, all right, the time in the heart rate zones, there's no time, at no point in time, despite the high power of the session, of the intervals, do I ever go into zone 4. All right, and that's because the interval time is short. It doesn't give you enough time to get up, work your way up through zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, all right? Same as the 6 times 200 run after the tempo effort. You don't have enough time to get into high intensity, all right? So this is really a neuromuscular thing. It's a strength thing. It's to open up the legs, all right? And we would back it up with another different session on a next day or the day after, okay? So this is why I call the power peaks like a trick set, okay? Because while you feel that you're pushing really hard for little bits at a time, the overall withdrawal from your system, like the training load of this system, if you like, the TSS, training stress score of this session is actually not very high. So I would categorize this in like low intensity training. Okay. And I promise I'd tell you what are the other kind of sneaky ways that I use to pad out your time to grow your time spent in your aerobic base, in your sub LT1, all right? And so that's when we put swimming in, okay? Because swimming, if your running heart rate is here, like biking, I said, is a little bit lower, swimming's even lower. So you can swim pretty hard and still keep your heart rate below LT1, all right? And you push it, it would go into like zone 3, right? Like that tempo zone. Really hard to get it up into high intensity levels. Okay, so swimming is great for padding out your time in LT1. Okay, because your heart doesn't know if it's swimming, biking, or running. It just knows that it's beating at a certain beats per minute, right? And we want to log that time at the low intensity zone. So I shared that with you just now. A long warm up and a long cool down is because we train so much that accumulatively or across the week, like 20-minute warm up, 15-minute warm up, 5-6 times a week, that's going to add up to another hour and a half of low intensity training, right? And then strength sessions as well. Because of the nature of strength sessions is up and down. It's similar to this power peak set, right? Like you have high heart rate for a little while and calm down again. If you look at the time in your heart rate zones of a strength set, like a circuit, that I built for you guys, it would register as a low intensity session. Okay, so those are some of the tricks that I use to get you to pad out your aerobic time in sub LT1 levels. Okay. All right, so I've gone on for a while, and I'm going to wrap up here. Any questions at all? Anyone? Any comments, thoughts to share?
Hi, Shem.
Hi, Paul.
Yeah. How do I get my bike com to transfer information like power onto my wrist watch, the Garmin on the wrist?
How do you get your bike computer, like the smart trainer?
No, on the road.
Oh, okay. So how do you get your one of these? Is it?
Yeah, to transfer like the power information onto the watch. Because right now my bike com is recording power from the power meter.
Yep.
My watch is recording the heart rate, right?
Okay.
I can't get them to talk one another.
Okay, so you wouldn't get these two to talk, okay?
Okay.
What you would do is sync both of them to your power meter and your heart rate monitor.
Okay.
You get it? You know what I mean? These two don't talk.
Okay.
This can talk to your heart rate monitor and your power meter, right?
Okay.
So can this. Right?
Can't you connect the data in Garmin Connect?
No, it would record as 2 files, which is again where it could get a bit muddy, because then like it would look as if you're doing a 24-hour training week if you don't delete. That's the other thing that I didn't touch on. If you don't delete one of them, right? So Paul, yeah, you can sync both of these to both the power meter and the heart rate monitor. Okay, you actually only need one, so you can just use this. Like when I'm on the bike, I just use this as a clock. Like, oh, I have to be home in half an hour. So let's leave the coffee shop. Okay, so because it's all copied on this. And if you're not careful about cleaning up your data, like going in and deleting one file, then I'm going to get double readings. So that answers your question.
So your bike com can get your heart rate, but you have to wear a heart rate strap. Is that correct?
Yes, you should always wear your heart rate strap.
So you can't transfer data from your wristwatch, the heart rate data, onto your bike com, right?
No, you can't. But no, you can't.
You can. You broadcast.
But you really, I mean, really shouldn't be using the wrist infrared heart rate monitor anyway, because it's vastly inaccurate. When we are talking about this sort of data analysis and this sort of, you know, zones and being so detailed, then it really, heart monitor is a must. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
But the simple answer to that question was get a new bike, Shem. I thought that was the perfect excuse to get a new bike.
Yeah, sure, Greg. That's your answer to everything, right? Okay. So any other questions? I know I've run a bit long, but most of you are still here. Some people had to split, but that's fine. Yeah.
Shem, I've got a question. This is Robin here.
Yeah. Hi, Rob.
Hi. Recently, I think Garmin has released this ability for you to feedback and actually record your rate of perceived exertion at the end of every activity. So is there any way you reckon this could be used to our benefit?
Garmin has released some, like, it's just a survey. Is it like, how hard was this for you kind of a thing, is it?
Oh, no, at the end of every session now, it will actually ask you like, how did it feel? And then you have like a smiley face or a frowny face.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm using a Garmin 945. I'm not sure what others are using, but this is, I'm just wondering whether in the course of a training session, or rather, like if I'm doing a 10K block, then would I be able to use this somehow to kind of gauge how my training is going?
Not really. There are more sophisticated, like very sophisticated ways to track your training load, right, and your levels of fatigue, and when your form is coming on. Okay, that's another level. That if this is like the date, like 101, okay, that's the postgraduate kind of degree. That's the more it's more technical. What I would use that for, what your function is with the smileys and all that, is part of your training log. So you would go into Garmin and you see all your sessions there, and then you would look back at a day that you put a big smiley and go, oh, that's when I run well. And then you could check back your pace, right? And you could even think back, oh, what, like, why did I put a smiley there? Like, because I ran well. So what helped me run well? And then you would think, oh, because I fueled well. Like I had a little snack before the run, or I slept well the night before, or it was a cool evening. All right. So it's all these little things that I think it's more of a tool to help you be more mindful. Or if you had a terrible run, all right, then you put a crying emoji. Then you might even add a note, which I think you can. Slept for 4 hours last night, and then you would know why. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Shem.
Yep. Ben.
Just wondering about the productive, unproductive. It tells you the training all the time. So I've been unproductive since the 10K run, since the 10K time trial, even on 4-hour rides.
Yeah, just generally not that productive, Ben.
Really? And peaking.
Okay. So I take those with a big pinch of salt, because I don't know what metrics Garmin uses to produce those comments. All right. Same with the comments that say, oh, you need 6 hours of rest, or you need like 72 hours of rest. All right. I don't know enough to ascertain whether or not you should be listening to that Garmin. What I have noticed though is that when I do a particularly hard effort, right, when there are high heart rates recorded and long periods of high heart rate recorded, I find that Garmin tells me that it's very productive, right? Like I'm doing really well, and it's like a 3.6 or a 4 out of a 5 scale of productivity of increasing my fitness. I mean, that's fine if the whole point of that was to log high intensity minutes and time. But if you are working on that 80 zone, the low intensity zone, Garmin might not recognize that as being productive, because they might think, oh, you're not working really hard, Ben, you're wasting your time out there, right? And that's what I've noticed when I look at my data. I can go out for a 3-hour ride and keep it really easy. And I come back and it's like you said, that little dial is right down and like not very productive. And I don't let it bug me, Ben. I'm not worried. I don't let that affect me, and I don't lose any sleep over that, because I know why I'm out there. I know why. Sorry. Yeah.
Just a little. And what about anaerobic and aerobic? That's the other one that comes up.
Okay. Again, like I have an old one. Aerobic and anaerobic doesn't come up for me. But I think what that would show is just where you're training, like whether it's above or below your anaerobic threshold. Again, I would use that. It sounds like that's what it tells you, like how much time above aerobic you spend. Is that what it tells you?
Yes, but well, I think it says basically the type, like how much time, how much of the workouts anaerobic and aerobic, and it can be sometimes 0 on anaerobic or 0 on aerobic.
Yeah. So that's a tool I think they use for you to calculate like how much time you spend in the high intensity and how much time in the low intensity. So it's not a good or bad. It's not like if there's more anaerobic means you're working harder and it's a good thing, right? Because sometimes we don't want to work anaerobically at all, right? So that one take with a pinch of salt as well. There would be ways to cut the data to show exactly how much time you spend in what zone, whether it's per week or per month, and that's pretty useful as well. Okay, but in terms of like what your question, anaerobic versus anaerobic, like not important. Like it's more important that you know what you're going out there to do, and you're not phased by if it says, oh, you spent 0 minutes anaerobic, especially if it's a long ride. Then I would be actually quite happy that I didn't hit any high intensities on that ride or run.
Okay, cool.
Thanks. I actually have something to add regarding these two values you see at the end of each workout.
Yeah.
So it's usually a number of between 0 and 5.
Yeah.
And according to Garmin, this tells you like the training effect scale for each anaerobic and anaerobic factors of your workout. So 0 means none, no effect. 1 is minor, 2 is maintaining, 3 is improving, 4 is highly improving. So that value over there just gives a rough gauge of how much you have been working out in each aerobic or anaerobic zone, but it doesn't particularly add to any value to anything. It's just a gauge.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Anyone else? Any pressing questions?
Yeah, I got one last question actually.
Sure.
For since we're talking so much about lapping, right? Like, and during our 10K sessions, there were certain times where we just ran 400 and forgot to lap. Are there any like scripts or software out there that helps you add 1 lap into an entire workout?
Add 1 lap? What do you mean?
So if I ran 10 laps and then at the end of the workout I realized I only did 9 presses of my Garmin lapping button, then I have
how to correct your data?
Yeah, to amend it.
Yeah, I don't know if there is or not. I'm not that bothered about it. I'm not that OCD about my data. I'm just like, oh, okay, I forgot to press lap. I'll just carry on with life.
Okay.
Well,
hey?
But Sam, this is
another row.
This is Greg. This is Greg. Having said that, actually, I've been actually using the virtual or the track session option on Garmin. On the latest or the newer versions of the Garmins, we actually have the ability to do the track. Yeah. And it's really accurate, you know. Actually, it predicts the distance on a lap very accurately. That means every 400 meters, it can literally count down to the line, you know, like 10 meters to the line. And that's a great option, because every time when I come up to where I started, it actually gives you the 3, 2, 1 beeping sound to the end of your 400 meters. So maybe that's an option for the guys if they want to try that. I think the track option is a new option, which is quite interesting.
Okay. I'll have to get to that when I get a new Garmin. Mine doesn't have it. Your old Garmin, I'll take that as well, Greg. Sorry, Michelle, what did you say?
That's where the auto lap for me helps.
I
just set it to 400 meters and just do it that way, because mine doesn't do. I haven't got the newest one.
But only if it's a time trial. Or if your intervals are 400 meters. If not, I wouldn't. Okay. All good. People are dropping off, so I think I'm gonna wrap up. Unless anyone's got anything unanswered. All right, Mark, you off?
Shem, that was really useful. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
thank you.
It's in particular, I thought that auto lap thing, that's what Garmin did, and you're right. And I used to lap, and then you merge that with the auto lap, and it obviously completely fucks the whole thing up. So it was super useful, and I've taken loads away from that.
Cool. Good. Well, tune in for the next talk, Mark. I'll see you all there. I'm not sure what I'm going to build it on yet, but something equally illuminating. All right. Okay.
Thanks, Shem.
Thanks, Shem. Thank you.
All right. Take it easy. And,
thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Shem.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right.